Thank you, James. Thanks to the Heartland Institute. I mean, it's always an honor to speak at a Heartland event. I mean, I can't repeat it more often. Heartland is a role model, in fighting the climate madness. Really, I mean, I have to say this. It's an honor. So, and yeah, so Germany is often quoted. The European Union is mentioned, as going ahead to save the planet from whatever. And so what? Okay, who rules energy policy? I mean, originally the energy policy was just a national issue, and of course, thanks to the climate scare, thanks to the Armageddon, the European Union became quite busy. And but in order to see, while the European Union tried to go in one direction, still countries, for example, like Germany, they just moved on their own for different reasons, for example, to go away from nuclear. So in 2011, they just decided, okay, to phase out nuclear by 2022. And so without consulting anybody else, I mean, you have to consider Europe has grid. So even when you have national energy policies, the grid is connected. So if you take out all nuclear power generation, you will see later what it might indicate. Okay, so in between, before just a few days ago, we got the news that the European Parliament, decided, okay, to go for a new Green Deal. There was already, I don't want to say it was behind the scene, how to say, willing countries ready and waiting to go ahead, actually to fulfill the Paris Agreement. And there was an interesting non-paper, as it was called, and still is called, which was signed by France, Belgium, Denmark, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, and Sweden. For some funny reason, Germany was not a signatory. And they basically agreed again, okay, we want to reach Paris. And what I found interesting, that they want to direct 25% of the European Union budget, in order to fight climate change and measures. And just the idea, I mean, it's like the dream of a bureaucrat, to facilitate the transition towards a decarbonized industrial sector. I mean, industrial policy is just a dream for any big government politician. So, but there are other countries. I mean, Europe is not just consisting, about these super highly industrialized, extremely modernized countries, but there are also some countries, a bit more the latecomers. And take, for example, Poland, the Czech Republic, Estonia, and Hungary. They just did not and don't want to join. I mean, you can see here that Poland, to this date, relies 80% on coal. They have no intention to really significantly move away and say, okay, even by 2050, you want to have at least 50% on coal, because even today, they are not happy with their reliance on Russian gas. So Germany, I mean, always mentioned as a poster child, the role model for going green. We even set up this year something is called the Climate Cabinet. It's not enough to have ministries, to have government, to have a chance. I know we even need a climate cabinet with the senior ministers. And anyway, what we read here now is like more or less, a way to fulfill the Paris Agreement. And I mean, the nice thing in inverted commas, they introduced now, or they decided to introduce a carbon tax by next year. So it starts very moderate, with $11 per ton. And so you might not really feel it. And they say, okay, by 2025, it will be 39. And everybody or anybody has any idea about taxes. Number one, taxes are there to stay, and taxes are there to be risen. In the sky is the limit. So what does it mean? I mean, it was mentioned before by Doug, the cost of living will go up. So we will have costlier fuels. And of course, they say, sure, you get cheaper railway transport. Right? I mean, most commuters travel by car, or at least a significant part. And they can't just change to a train that doesn't exist. And an also interesting thing is they want to ban oil heating. In Germany, about 24% of the households are still relying on oil-powered heating, and even the warm water is made with oil, heated with oil. And so by 2026, so, okay, in a way, don't care about the industry that produces the heating facilities, okay, they have to find a way. And of course, we mustn't forget, always the dream of the future, the electric cars. And I find it quite interesting that even the ceiling is $44,000, you know, every car below this, and I think it's actually still a high price. Cars below $44,000 will benefit from the subsidies. Details still to be decided. And of course, the annual road tax will be in line with the car's emission, which is again is like a double, triple taxation, because already if you want to levy a tax on the fuel, you already get punished there. And then of course you get extra punished with your road tax. So, and Germany loves commissions, you know, and which I find really very impressive, you know, that the Coal Commission, official title is the Commission on Growth, Structural Change and Employment, consisted of out of 39 actually non-energy experts, non-experts on the energy in the energy field. So these people sat together and decided that by 2033 we won't have power generation anymore based on coal. And somebody who really knows about the proceedings says, not a single time any person asked where the power is supposed to come from. I mean, I wasn't there, but I rely on this, and I think it's very feasible way how we run politics. And so that's probably what we will see in the future a bit more. So, and then as I said, we love commissions. So we have an ethics commission on nuclear power. I mean, we had it. It was a couple of years ago. And I mean, again, fathom this, you know, in 2011, we got, again, non-experts in the field, 21 of them, and they decided or recommended in 2000 to phase out nuclear until 2021. Okay, now in the end it became law, so by 2022 we will phase out nuclear. And I mean, I don't know much about the proceeding there, but I guess if at all, not many might have answered or asked the question where the power is coming from. And so then this is probably then very historic side then, but it takes a while to take these things down. So, but look at the energy mix now. So I don't want to bore you with too many charts, but this chart gives a very nice intro. We just talk about the electricity mix. I'm not actually yet talking about the energy mix in total, about including primary energy for industrial use and whatever. So we just talk about what power, which sources do we use to produce electricity. And you can see, I mean, it's quite impressive. The orange-yellow chart part of the pie is renewables. On the right side, it's split up. So we can, okay, wind onshore, it's 14.3%, wind offshore, 3%, hydropower, almost 3%, biomass, 7%, solar, 7%, and waste, about 1%. Okay, but again, I mean, look on the left side. Now we have lignite, hard coal, nuclear, and natural gas. So now comes an interesting part. I mean, before I go to the next slide, you have to know that why are renewables, I mean, so prominent here, which looks really, really promising? Because by law, renewable power is preferred, meaning they have priority in the grid. The moment there is renewable energy, and I don't use no inverted commas every time I talk about renewable energy, it's easier. So every time power comes from a wind farm, from a photovoltaic field, it has priority over any other generated power. So the coal-fired power plants have to get off the grid if there is enough so-called green power in it. So, and now look at this chart. It looks a bit confusing, but it's very worthwhile and important actually to look at it. On the left side, you see the left side in megawatt about its installed capacity. So installed capacity, and the orange line on top, this is the installed capacity combined of wind and solar. So we basically have almost 110,000 megawatts installed capacity of wind and solar. Okay. The very interesting part now is, okay, what is a brown thing? Okay, it's a load. basically what is used, what is consumed in electricity. So you would say, okay, it's great. We have almost 110,000 megawatt installed capacity, and we, on average, it oscillates between 40 to 60,000 megawatts energy consumption. Good, but what is on the bottom? On the bottom, the blue and yellow, what is a bit like covered, is actually the contribution. It's electricity generated by wind and solar. So basically, everywhere where you see the brown, this means this has to come from other sources. So when you say, okay, 30%, let's say a third of our January energy production comes from wind and solar, it's nice, yeah. But it's possible, to have a functioning economy still, because the missing bit comes from traditional generation. So obviously, what does the, how do you call it, extrapolating thinking politician just say? Oh, we just need more solar and wind. So if you now have a third, we just, let's say double at least, be moderate, just double it. So what will happen? Okay, I just give you, it's easier to see here. And actually, that's very, very recent figures. We talk about November 2019, basically last month. And it's very interesting to see, here's wind, the days, where we have, let's go with the end of November, about the night 28th to the 29th November, where we reach 40,000 megawatts in electricity production, which is nice. And it's even during the week where you could say, okay, industry needs it, and household might even some heat with electricity, but not many. But I think interesting is also what happened on the 20th of it's a Wednesday, the 20th of November, where we had, it's a little bit above the margin of error, somewhere, let's say 1,000 to 2,000 megawatts production. So let's have a look at the same now, again, November, maybe the last month. What happened to solar? Up, you see, that's installed capacity, close to 50,000 megawatt installed capacity. And the little spikes in orange, this is what is the actual generation, which is there, which was fed in the grid. And as I said before, green energy has a priority. The moment it's there, it has to be bought. So, and again, okay, so on, let's pick a day. Take the Wednesday, the 6th of November. So we got, about 6,000 megawatts. Or what is the peak? Thursday night to Friday, we got almost 15,000 megawatt. So now we listen to our politicians and say, okay, let's just double wind and solar. So you have to now look on the left side. And instead of 110,000 megawatts, now we have about 220,000 megawatts installed capacity. And now in this case, you really can extrapolate it. So what happens now with power generation? Like previously, the brown thing with this up and down, this is actually the actual consumption. It's still in the range, 40,000 to 60,000, nothing changes here. And, but, we have more production now from wind and solar. However, again, take Wednesday to Thursday, the 20th to the 21st, where we have basically no significant electricity production from wind or solar. Okay, what does the politician say? More of this. Okay, let's go for 3 times. On the left side, now we are at 330,000 megawatt installed capacity for wind and solar. The consumption obviously stays the same. Okay, and again, look on the Wednesday, the 20th. So where do we get the power from? So it's interesting. Of course, we could now, 5 times, 10 times, we will have this gap. And if you see these brown fields, these brown areas on the graph, they're quite significant. And it actually gets worse often in January, February, where we have a couple of days where it's no significant contribution either. Okay, so again, back to this. Okay, here we have in the graph, let's go to the original one. Sorry for the confusion. Now here, okay, this is actually the status quo, November last month. So how do you deal with this? You know, you have power generation from the wind and solar. It's fluctuating. Sure, the predictions about the wind, when the wind is coming, whether the sun will shine, whether we'll have clouds and so on, they're getting more and more accurate. And the experience in forecasting, I mean, they're more and more precise, but still you have to adjust. You have to adjust the timetable, how you run your power plants. I mean, in the old days, when we relied basically exclusively coal or nuclear, it was, let's say, six or seven times a year, maybe 15 times a year, you had to adjust the timetable of a power plant because it was quite predictable. You know, when you knew, okay, it was a football, soccer match or so, you knew, okay, in that particular time when it's over and then people, whatever, switch on heating or whatever. So you could plan. Now, with all these fluctuations, the costs for redispatching, in the past, they were absolutely totally, you could ignore these costs. I mean, now we are roughly about €1 billion just for redispatching. And this is actually, to do the proper calculation, yes, it's possible, but you end up with a figure which is not very, very clear. It's something between 600 millions to 1.4 billion. And because we also, when we have too much wind, which happens in summer or so, when we have too much solar, too much wind, then we of course have to ask the wind farmers to say, okay, we pay you for not producing electricity. And okay, so while actually we really have now more and more wind farms, we get of course the news, so that no matter what we do, no more how much we install, the people say it's not enough. And now everybody knows we have these protests. We even see these people who basically, an event like this, actually, congratulations that you managed to have your event. And when we had our conference, I have to mention this, 2 weeks ago in Munich, we needed police protection. We had to keep the location secret, basically until the late afternoon the day before. So we had to keep 200 people in the dark, you know, to not leak out the event in order to avoid to get sabotaged by extreme left activists. So what is the message actually? So what we have today is a situation where the politicians try to please the crowd. The politicians try to please children who are angry, children who are angry because the politicians in their eyes don't do enough. And why are the children angry? Well, other people as well are angry. Why do they don't do enough? Because for decades they are brainwashed that the world is coming to an end. We have to cut carbon emissions. And for the most time, the politicians were kind of responsible. But now, by really saying, okay, we want to fulfill, we want to be good and fulfill the Paris Agreement, we actually now deindustrializing. So, I mean, if you see the shedding of jobs, you know, of big companies, you name it, the blue chip companies, and soon you will probably say the former blue chip companies, when they shed jobs by the thousands. And what does it mean for us? Okay, I mean, it's a bit like, okay. When I read the first time Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, you know, I said, oh, whoa, this is an eerie story. And it's more and more, it is this way, because you have the companies who are exempt from particular certain surcharges on the electricity. Doug, you mentioned the prices in Chile and also Denmark. By the way, Germany is now leading. This year we beat Denmark with electricity prices. It's now 34 US cents per kilowatt hour. My American friends don't know what to do with this figure because they usually don't even know how much they pay, because it's for them mostly irrelevant because it's fairly cheap, of course, depending which state you are. point I want to make is what we see for years is a redistribution for the people who invest in green energy from the normal consumer who pays more and more, and it goes at the expense of consumption. And James mentioned it. I mean, like, okay, you can only spend your money once for education, for health, well, you name it. Here, now what we have, the person who doesn't have enough money or his own real estate to invest a photovoltaic field or in a wind farm, they pay the high price for electricity, and it goes to the people who, anyway, are usually not really so short of cash. Okay, on that note, I mean, I just want to say it is more than ironic, you know, that the left and the ultra-left, you know, is attacking us for actually our attempt to bring reason in a time when, I mean, insanity seems to be normal. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and consider donating to the Heartland Institute to support more vibrant free markets, greater individual liberties, and more videos like this one.